Today we're here with Lauren Patrick, CEO and founder of Healthmonix. So thank you so much for coming in here, and
Thanks
this
for having me.
all about you. So tell me,
Okay.
who does Healthmonix serve and what problem do you solve for them?
Sure. So we serve providers across all 50 states, Puerto Rico and Guam. And what we do is we collect all of their data through a lot of different mechanisms.
Magic.
Magic,
There you go.
Health Jump, other, right. And we provide quality reporting dashboards. So we show them how they're doing against current standards of care, and we give them the chance to improve, and then we report that data to where it's necessary, for example, to CMS or to other payers for things like HEDIS.
So the challenge that we see amongst practices is often just the ability for them to pull all of that together, right? So what is it that you're uniquely doing at Healthmonix that makes these problems go away for them?
So we use a variety of different mechanisms. We meet the provider and the practice where they are. So if they have data in an EHR, we look at the EHR and see if there's a mechanism to pull that data out. If they have data in their claim systems, we'll pull that data from their 835s and 837s. If they have data in spreadsheets, we'll pull that out. If they have data in their EMR or some system where there is no interface, we will hire chart abstractors and we'll go in and pull that data out. So we really do what we can to not put the onus on the practice to gather that data.
How is that often received when you're saying how you're meeting them where they're at? Because that's a fairly unique situation.
They're happy. I mean, they don't want to have anything to do with data integration. Data integration in this industry, as you know, being with HealthJump, is one of the biggest challenges that we face right now.
What are their experiences that you've been hearing about in healthcare? Like, what types of trauma have they gone through?
Well, they've paid a lot of money for a vendor that hasn't done it for them in the past. They've tried to get data out and the data has been wrong.
Imagine that.
Or just they don't know what to do. They're flummoxed about what they need to do.
So what does the before and after picture look like before Healthmonix and after Healthmonix?
For a lot of providers, to your point, if they've had a really bad experience, we have to do a proof of concept. We have to say, okay, we're going to take 20 or 50 records, we're going to run them through our system, and you're going to vet them before we move forward. And we have to do that oftentimes before the contract's signed.
What types of programs are you helping see that they're meeting the requirements of?
So we started off actually in a program called MOC, Maintenance of Certification, which was where doctors, in order to stay board certified, had to go through a program where we would take the data out of their EHRs or wherever the data was, we'd bring it in against the quality metrics, and then they'd have to do a performance improvement program. So that was number one. Then from there we moved into what was called PQRS at the time. From there we've moved into MIPS. Now we're working with ACOs and with other payers in the HEDIS component. We also take that data, since we're getting it and we're spending a lot of time getting it, and push it back to providers for gaps in care.
You mentioned that you support accountable care organizations.
I think in order to enable an ACO, there's a lot of different components. There's the quality measures, there's the cost measures. So cost is a whole nother arena that we need to look at, where we have to look at, for that patient, how much is the cost of care for that patient? And for there, it's not just the providers that you're working with, but it's everywhere that patient is going. So what we're doing is we're going out there and we're gathering all the claims data for those patients and bringing it back to that provider and saying, you only saw the typical primary care provider only bills 7% of a patient's cost for the year. So the other 93% is in inpatient care, it's in specialists, it's in ED visits, in PT, in medications, it's all over the board. And the primary care provider, who were basically in an ACO saddling with the responsibility of lowering the cost of care for that patient, doesn't know where that patient's going, nor how much it's costing for that care. So what we're doing is not only bringing in the data for quality, but bringing in all of the cost data and saying, okay, look, this patient went to the ED. I mean, we find patients that have gone to the ED 26 times in a year. that patient is using that ED as a primary source of care. So we need to talk to that primary care doc who may or may not know about that and say, we need to talk about this patient and how we can prevent that from happening.
If you're focused on the primary doctor, if only 7%
Right.
of the cost is through their office, trying to make that needle move has got to feel impossible.
Spending more time with that patient and providing more services so that that 7% could go up to 10 or 15% by bringing that patient in and doing things like nutrition counseling and making sure that you're checking the labs appropriately and doing annual wellness visits and chronic care management. You could move that up to 15%, but you're gonna negate a lot of that other cost that's happening because the patient's not gonna go into the ED. They're not gonna have
Early
the need to
intervention.
go to specialists. They're not going to develop CKD on top of it. So the more we can get involved, that primary care doc involved in understanding the care that that patient is getting, that primary care doc can spend more time with that patient from a revenue perspective, gain more revenue, and then gain more revenue from the fact that they're reducing the entire cost of care for that patient and seeing the upside of being in an ACO.
So if someone wanted to learn more about Healthmonix, where could they find that information?
Well, obviously we have a website, healthmonix.com.
Crazy.
We do a lot of webinars. So if you go to our website, you'll see that every month our goal is to do 2-hour-long webinars that are pretty informative. We talk about cost of care, we talk about quality metrics, we talk about data integration, we talk about ACOs, we talk about what you can do to lower the cost of care for your patients. So I would say that's a great place to start, and I'm always, as you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate about this, so I'm always happy to talk to people.
Well, it's infectious, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.